concept artist from CIG UK, none other than the illustrious Sarah McCullough. Sarah, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you very much, and hello everyone.
Hello. Yeah, remember it's weird because we got to do the Star Trek view screen thing. You want to look at the screen,
Yes.
but to make it appear as if we're seeing each other through Star Trek view screens, you got to look at the camera, and just
It's
like
technology.
I see. I can look at the camera. I can see you're wearing you got your wipeout jacket again.
I
Welcome back.
do, and I also am representing the Mercury as well.
Oh yeah.
Of course.
This is a shirt from the Bar Citizen we had a couple years ago.
It
2
was.
years
It was a
ago.
really good event. Really enjoyed that. It was fab. Need to do it again.
Cool. So if you're just joining us, or if this is your first SCL that you've ever seen, welcome. Star Citizen Live is our weekly live stream where we hang out at the end of the week and we explore a bit of process. We check out a little bit about how what we're doing in Star Citizen, how we do it, some of the thought process behind it. Sometimes we have roundtable Q&As. It varies from week to week. This week, we thought that we would take some after a recent announcement in yesterday's Valentine's Day promotion comlink that the Crusader Industries Mercury Star Runner is being added to the roadmap for Alpha 4.1, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yep.
We thought we'd take some time and sit down with Sarah, who was the principal concept artist for the Star Runner.
I was indeed, yeah.
And go through and explore a little bit of that process. Now, this is we're gonna look at the original concept process. So this isn't the work that's going on right now. This is the work that went along in the past. We'll go through that process, and then if there's time remaining, maybe we'll look at some other stuff that
Yes, please.
we won't mention right now, just in case we don't get to it.
No.
All right, so Sarah, with that, let's jump right into it. We've had enough robocopping to beginning, so you can go ahead and share your screen. We'll get rid of our pictures, and we'll just look at your lovely, lovely pictures.
Yes. Okie doke.
So, right off the bat, before we get into the individual things, this thing that we're looking at,
Yes.
what is this as in general?
So, with the Mercury, we tried out a lot of different varied shapes of this. This was just off the back of the Hercules, so we kind of knew what direction to go in, but we also wanted to have a little bit of a different spin on it. So we took that and just ran with it, and we ended up with quite a lot of varied different shapes and ideas. We always had an underlying feeling like this for us is our next step in Crusader industry. So, and it was like a courier craft. So what do we want out of this ultimately?
Right. Now, when you started this, we'd only shown 2 Crusader Industries ships before. We showed the original Genesis Starliner.
Yeah.
Go Genesis! If you're a fan of the Genesis Starliner and you're in Twitch chat, give me a G. Put a G in chat if you're a fan of the Genesis Starliner, because that's my actual favorite ship. And then we followed that up a couple years later with a look at those G's. You're all a bunch of G's, everybody. Well, not you. You're not a G. What are you doing? And then we followed that up with the Hercules Starlifter, which we showed in early white box on yesterday's ISC. And if you haven't checked out yesterday's ISC, check that out for the first white box images of the Starlifter. So you had those two images created at different periods in our development. I mean, the Starliner was 2015. The Starlifter was 2019.
Yes.
I remember. So 4 years of game development in between. You have to start concepting a new one. How do you reconcile those two?
Well, we looked at the base shape of the Starliner, and it had this it had almost like a hump in the middle section, and then it kind of had almost like it looks like an anvil from the very top. Mm-hmm. So that's what we did with a few of these, is we've had this midsection that's slightly raised in the middle, and then kind of just spread out further towards the back. Give that same type
closer?
of so it kind of gives that same appeal as the Starliner, and the Hercules had these sort of like air intakes and we got the some of the inspiration from that from like real life aircraft. So that's what we did for these ones. But as you can see, we did quite a lot of investigation work with these, because originally it was going to go really far out and have, because it was also had in the back of our minds like asymmetry as well. So there's that's why there's a few of these that are asymmetrical, because it's what we wanted to go for. And then we did a few more.
Now, do you remember why you wanted asymmetry? For me personally, I love the asymmetry, but for some people, it's hard to get past it. Like Elwin, for instance. Elwin doesn't like the asymmetry, and he's going to kill me for admitting that. But it's different for every person. How did we get to asymmetry? Do you remember?
Well, asymmetry. I think silhouette-wise, it's a good thing to stand out from the rest of ships, which is quite nice, because I know the Caterpillar's like quite a nice example, because that's slightly asymmetrical, and I have a real I absolutely love asymmetry, and also it was it was just like just a point of interest for us to just investigate it and see actually how it looked, and as it turned out, it looked quite nice.
Let's go ahead and zoom in on a lot of these. Now, this thing that we're using right now is called a Miro Board. It's kind of like those. It's a digital version of those giant art boards. Whoa! Hearing some audio stuff. Is that you?
No.
JJ, are you pushing something? Go ahead and continue.
Yeah. So, as I say, with the asymmetry in mind, we were just trying to experiment with, as I say, as much shapes as possible. And I'll just zoom in. We had an idea actually, like this could be like an undercarriage section, which sort of had a vibe of the Millennium Falcon, but we thought it might have been a bit too close. But then we sort of toyed around with this idea as well, where the main canopy would be in this middle section, and then it would have this encasing around its engines, just to differentiate between the Hercules and the Starliner.
Right. The circle, the circle on the right. If I'm trying to remember those meetings, that was like some kind of weird broadcast thing or sensor thing that would raise up.
Long range scanner, for picking up data, maybe some data that you shouldn't actually acquire, but data nonetheless. So originally we were thinking it would be something that was recessed, and then when you needed it, it would raise up from there. Yeah, it deploys. Yeah, exactly. Just so it doesn't get in the way as well too much. Okay, so we just. So yeah, as I say, there's quite a lot of options.
I'm looking at those ones, and scroll back to the left a little bit to the ones with all the wings, and just we often one of the refrains that we hear from Star Citizens over the years is, "Why does it have wings?" And this is like all the wings. Look at all these wings.
Oh, there's so many wings. It's like
what is that? 70 has like 6 wings.
Yes, it's like a beautiful butterfly.
It is actually.
Yeah, it's like insects are actually quite a big inspiration for me. Actually, when it comes to interest in shapes, because they're so varied in shape, and they fly as well, which is quite incredible. So it's quite a good point of reference that I use as insects.
What insects were you thinking here?
Well, it's mainly to do with like beetles, because they also have their wings encased in like an exterior, and then they're deployed outwards. So, like this one, which is like a sweeping wing, I use a lot of, like I say, like ladybirds as wings, which are quite delicate, but they fold out into such a cool shape. which is quite a cool.
Yeah. Now, for those who are asking in the chat, like how you do all of these, like these are what we call thumbnails. They're little. They're the. I'm trying to. How would you describe thumbnails? Because I know how I would describe it, but I just realized you're here, so I should just ask you.
So a thumbnail is just get it on the paper as quick as you can. It's like your first thoughts of like what you're thinking internally, and these are done very quickly in 3ds Max, and then I put them into Photoshop and just literally doodle over them. And as you can see, this is number 73. So these are very fast, but they're just initial ideas just formed off everything else that's come before it. And then we obviously get feedback, and then they change.
Just to find that initial silhouette. We talked a bit about that the last time we had you on the show, when I was there in whatever month that was, November. It's finding that silhouette read. Folks, historians might remember the old spotter cards from like World War II, when they would just have the silhouettes of planes, so that soldiers on the ground could identify which plane was overhead, whether they were friendly or foe. The silhouette is your first read of a ship, and thumbnails are super important to just get that initial first glimpse. Like, yes, that's how we want the ship to feel before you go into all the crazy detail that comes throughout the process of building the ship.
Yeah, and that's why asymmetry works quite well as well, because you'll know instantly, even if it's in silhouette, that's exactly what ship it is, and that's what I want. I want an instant read, even if it's miles and miles away. I want people to know exactly what it is when it's when it's approaching you, because that way, like you said, you can identify its purpose as it's approaching.
So now. Just to get there, we've obviously gained many Star Citizens since this was first introduced. You just mentioned its purpose. What do you remember of the purpose for the Star Runner?
Data carrier as its main objective. However, I like to have little surprises on my ship, so I give it a ventilation system as well, with compartments in the ventilation system for sensitive data, or if you've collected anything in particular that you want to, stay hidden, shall we say. And it evolved actually into a much more complex and like, for me, I want it to be like a really fun experience when you're on a ship. So it's almost like a level, so you can like run around and actually, if you're getting hijacked or whatever, you can actually get out of that situation by what you've got on your ship in terms of like placement of objects and how the flow of the ship is, which is what I did with this.
To address Maximus Primus's question, what is a data runner and why can't every ship run data? That's an excellent question. It's something that's still being developed and still being worked out by our game and systems design teams. When we have more information on that specifically, we'll, of course, do a segment on that stuff. But I would encourage you to check out the original promotion page, which will have which will have the available information we have on those game systems there. Luckily for concept artists, they don't have to worry about things like how the game systems have to work.
Yeah, it's got like a lot of avionics on board a data runner, and it's got data pods as well. So that was something that we had to factor in for a data runner.
Let's see some more pictures. We've been looking at these pictures not that these pictures aren't beautiful, but we have so many pictures.
So we developed this, and after all those thumbnails, we basically come up with this idea with where it was actually on the side carriage section here, and then the radar data scanner would be this middle section, and then we started to block it out, developed it a little bit further, again made sure that the dimensions were correct with what we were given off the brief, and then
zoom in on that one with the dimensions, the box there.
This box.
Yeah,
here you go. Yeah, so obviously when we get given our brief, we have to make sure that it conforms to the dimensions so that they can fit on the landing pads. And this is how we work out our initial 3D. Is basically you have to stick to this box no matter what, because otherwise, it won't fit. Mm-hmm. And then what we can do with this is whatever volume this fits, we can do another box inside of this and then work out the interior from there, to make sure that everything will fit inside the ship also.
For good weather gaming, go to send your brother to cloudimperiumgames.com/jobs. Any positions available are there if your brother wants to be a concept artist. Now, talking about restrictions, you just said you have to make it. You have to make it within these metrics. We just talked with Jeremiah Lee on ISC a couple weeks ago about being forced to work within restrictions and how it can be simultaneously frustrating, but also the source of inspiration. What's the phrase? Adversity is the mother of all creation.
Yeah, it's very true, because you want the most bang for your buck, right? So you want to fit all this fun stuff in, but it's like, right, okay, because of the size of it, it does pose an interesting challenge, and that's where the fun comes in, because you're trying to plan this all out and make sure that it works, but you also want a great experience as well. Mm-hmm. And it is a lot of fun, but it can be frustrating at times as well, because you just want to put in.
You just want to make the thing you want to make.
Exactly. But as I say, you have to make sure that it fits on the landing pad, that the landing gear fits. There's so much to take into account that has to work on this.
All the various metrics, the different docking ports.
Yeah, ramp angles. So it's little things like that you have to account for. But ultimately you end up with something that's quite fun. This was actually another blockout that we did. So again, from the thumbnails that we did this another one, but this one was symmetrical. And then this is where we plan out exactly what we can do with this initial blockout that we did. And again, it's just planning and making sure that everything fits, even at this, what we would consider a very fast concept, just to make sure that we're on the right track, and then make sure to get it in front of Chris and make sure that he's okay with it. And again, from that initial top one, we did more blockouts.
Making sure that everything that you need will fit in there is one of those lessons we learned the hard way over the first couple of years. Yeah. Well, it's when you're concepting for movies or television or comics or whatever, even video games, most video games, you don't have to do a ship 1-1. Not everything has to fit inside the ship. Very famously, you look at the Millennium Falcon. The interior of the Falcon does not fit in the exterior of the Falcon. From the outside, you walk up a ramp that starts at the exterior and puts you into the middle of the ship. And then when the camera cuts inside the ship, people are entering from the exterior ring of the ship. I mean, the inside does not fit in the outside, but we don't have that. Our ships have to work 1-1, and it took a while to figure that process out, because many concept artists were not used to working with that level of restriction, with that level of reality and detail, and everybody get ready to drink fidelity.
It was something that I've learned over the years here, and it was just. It is at first difficult to just get your head around, because there's so much that's involved. It's a very complicated process, but once you've done one ship, you start to get into a flow of it. And this was my very first one that I had ever done. So this was literally me going solo on it, and I really did learn an awful lot on this one. It was incredibly fun, and it did actually push me as an artist as well, which I I really, really love, because there is a tendency to become stagnant, but not on this. This was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun on this. So
I'm seeing each phase go back and forth between symmetric. Like the last one was symmetric. This one is asymmetric.
Yeah, that's it. So this one was an asymmetrical one. And we did do a little bit of further work and investigation on the interior of this one, and this actually helped us plan out what you'll see a bit later on. Just flow, basically, of the ship.
Enhance. Now remember, folks, this was a concept layout. Which but before this gets screenshotted and shared all over Reddit and whatever, remember that this was a layout, one potential layout during the concept phase of a concept that it wasn't actually chosen. So please, before you screenshot this and put this up there, remember that this is for a version of the ship we didn't use.
Yes. This actually helped us quite a lot, because this allowed us to see the flow of a ship. And as you can see at the moment, it's just a straight line, basically. So it's very boring, really. It's like it gets to the point A and B, with everything that's required in the ship, and then we just quickly blocked out cargo area. This was the bedroom area from different angles. This was going to be the data extraction pod, and in the as you can see, the avionics are here, and then there's your data pods in this section where you'd collect your data. And then it was just exterior forms, which is what we call this. And it was just, this is just a very initial quick block out of what it used to look like. And then again, as I say, the dimensions of it, make sure that every single component fits, because that's, again, another really important thing on these ships, is that all the components fit, and also fixed thrusters, and if it's got VTOL as well, to make sure that that was also accommodated for. And again, this is just stripped down version of the ship without the exterior on, so this is just the interior layout from A to B. The view from the cockpit, and then this is how we basically plan out visuals of when you're looking forward, how's this exactly going to look. And I was quite adamant on having a area where you can actually see below you, so you can see when you land, because I don't know how many times I've crashed into the floor.
Overrated.
So I did want to actually make sure that you did have good visibility, and again, it was just blocking it out. Okay, so this is where we got into what we now have, which is this form. So Chris gave us feedback, and this is what we took from the feedback, is to basically change it up a little bit. And so we ended up with this asymmetrical side. And this section here has the bedroom compartment, and this section here has what is now the chess room. And this is the window that you can look out of.
Interesting to me, as I look at this version, I look at the one that was previous. Really, you almost had it in the previous version. You just cut off the. Like you cut off the little forward wings.
Yeah, that was. Sometimes that's all it takes. Is that really? It's just like a nip and tuck. It's nice to have the little backwards and forwards, because you get a lot more out, and you can see how far you can push something as well, which is why we ended up with this one. And like I say, all this initial layout and planning isn't lost, because as you can see here, when we came to this initial stage, this is us very roughly blocking out, again, flow and also player interaction. If someone's, as I say, were to hijack you, you've got options to escape safely or not, if you want to face them head on, or just hunker down into certain rooms and stuff.
Yes, I was going to ask you, scroll to the right a little bit. Bring the top view. What are the scribblings of a crazy person here?
So, like I was saying before, we wanted to make sure that you had an actual nice transition and flow to the ship. So, if someone was to come in here, you've got a multitude of options to basically escape. And this is also was planning out. I think we've got it on here. Yeah, so you can just see the beginnings of the ventilation underneath, and this is what we were saying is maybe if we had a ventilation in this room, you could sneak under and come out of this room, and maybe there's an area in here which is the cockpit area where you could pop out, and this is, I said, oh, here we go. So this is the ventilation that you can see underneath at this very early stage, and this is what I want ultimately, is a really fun experience, even like, you know, as you're playing. Even on your ship and stuff, is just you know, you don't know what scenario you're going to end up in, so it's good to have as many options as you possibly can.
I gotta play CIG advocate here, guys. Zoom in on that 108 SCU total there. Remember, that was a target SCU during the concept phase.
Yeah, it was 96.
Exactly.
Ultimately.
Exactly. That's a target SCU during the concept phase. It's not representative of what will actually be there. As always, stats are subject to change. We're as we begin the process of building the ship out ahead of its intended release in 4.1, things may change. It may get bigger. It may get smaller. It may stay the same. That's what game development is, and that's what exploring. So, before anybody takes the 108 SCU to the bank, just remember these are early. This is early in the concept phase. Take it with a grain of concept salt.
Yeah, because there's one thing to know as well is, like, I'll always try and get as much in as possible. So I want, as you know, as much in there as I can possibly fit. I zoom into my meshes and make sure that I'm as close as I possibly can to something, to make sure that every little bit is filled, so that I can fit in as much as I possibly can, either an extra room, more SCU, wider corridors. I like to make sure that everything is.
To the person in Spectrum chat that asked if I miss when standard cargo units were actually called freight units, sometimes. Sometimes.
Okay, so from this concept, I did the initial 3D blockout, and as you actually can see as well, the guns are in a different position. Ultimately, it did move to the front here because I wanted to. I said in my original video, I wanted to see them shoot, because if I've just bought some big guns, I want to see them getting fired.
No, you make a very good point. There's a, if this is a word, a viscerality. It adds to the visceral experience. Is probably the more appropriate way to say that. To see, when you're shooting, when you're piloting a ship, if you can see those cannon blasts actually come across your field of view, it's a much more rewarding experience. It's one of those things we've discovered as we've developed Star Citizen. Yeah,
definitely. And like I say, this is why as well the glasses you can see all the way down to the floor, because I want you to be able to see as much as possible, including the weaponry that you've just bought. So at this stage, it's just making sure that as you can see here, the flow is the same, and again, we want to make sure that you can see everything and make sure, like I say, we're going to move the guns to here.
Captain Richard is already making the viscerality meme.
Yes. Fabulous. Yeah, so these vents were actually a different shape as well, that you can see, and also we wanted to make sure that you had enough pivot for the thrusters, so that so there's enough maneuverability, and obviously landing gears. Make sure that they have full compression, and also the ramp as well, to make sure they can come fully out. underside, just blocking it out and again refining it. And these are some of the rooms as well. This was the initial space that we had, and then we just had to basically cut it down because this was from the older, much older concept that we had, but we just did a quick block out of it anyway. So this was the data pod section. That once you've collected your data, it gets stored in these cubes, and also access to your cooler. Again, this room here is for collecting data, and I wanted to make sure as well in each room, it just had a nice flow to it, and it had its Crusader Industries mark in every room. Okay, so yeah, that was just an initial concept, which that floor plan you might have seen back here. Mm-hmm. That is this. So as I say, I block everything out in 3D and make sure that it feels right. And then again, this has been refined, and then this is where we were talking about the radar that comes out when you're scanning. This is just a bit of a close-up of it to show how it looks when it's deployed.
It seems smaller than it was in those original concepts.
Yeah, this is not the final one. This was us when we were just initially trying to think like, what do we want it to look like? How is it deployed? And this is what we were doing at this time. Okay.
Somebody chats pointed out it's going to look like an R2-D2 popping up.
Yes. I mean, I suppose it does. Yeah, it's got he's got a little dome head. It just needs the beep. This for us is just basically refining what we have, and making sure that it looks correct from every angle, and then making sure that deploy stages, and then this is what I really like to have fun with. This for me is like, I love it so much. It's just planning every room and making sure that, again, player experience is fun. As you can see, this is the cargo area.
Now, you don't do the layouts completely on your own. You're working with one of the designers.
Paul and John and design, basically making sure that it's correct. And it will be a fun experience overall. So this is what I call like my initial floor plan, and this is that room with the data pods. This is what this is, and that's the cooler there. This is a ship item room, and then as you can see underneath here is the ventilation shafts with the little compartments in for wherever you want it to be, really. It's up to you.
We're not telling you have to smuggle.
Not telling you anything what you have to do. No, exactly. And again, as you can see, this is just to help us plan and make sure that the flow of the ship is correct and fun. And again, this yellow section here, you can see is the entirety of the ventilation shaft. Just making sure that certain areas join up to others, and also, the cache sections are in the right places. So it, like we talked about it, Bar Citizen, some of these are going to be risky to go in and get. So this one, which has a particularly long shaft, really, you could put something quite valuable here, and someone would probably know that you're sneaking around trying to get this object in here, wherever it may be, and could come in after you, which would be quite a terrifying experience. But it might be worth the risk. Yeah, or not, basically.
For those of you who may not remember or weren't around when it happened, there was a live SC. It was called the RTV back then, but there was a live show much like this one where we had a panel of folks who worked on the ship, and we revealed it at a Brauhaus in Cologne, Germany, and that's with a big roundtable conversation and questions from the community. That's available on our YouTube channel. maybe somebody can link it in Twitch chat for those who are watching live. But there's a whole bunch more information about our intentions for the Star Runner and what we want of it in the Precision universe there.
Mm-hmm. So these are just more shots, just dead quick. Like at this stage as well, we're planning shots of it for like finished renders that you'll see on like our promotional pages. And these are the computers that we use the avionics for the data sections of our ship, which is why they're in the same area. Long shot of the corridor and stuff.
When you write needs a better angle, is that just you being passive aggressive to yourself?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm just like, I want to get the best angle for the ship. And I want to show it in like its best light, so it's like you get a good overall shot. And I think we actually went with this one because it shows the avionics and then another room here, and then this door is open, so you get to see right through down into the which is the bedroom on this side, and the chess room is here, so you get to see it all instead of just data pods, which are fine, but I just wanted to have that oomph. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's another section of the same corridor, and this is the bedroom. So again, wanted to make sure that it's like this floor. I wanted to actually make like a rubber, so that when you're coming into this section, it's a bit more quieter than the rest of the ship because it's quite hard and you'd probably hear footsteps. Toilets there, your little sink. And of course, your little cooey holes for towels and things, which is super important. I don't want wet hands. So this is another thing. Yep. So the chest room, of course, which this actually deploys down into the floor and is a entrance to a shaft underneath, and it actually has a cache right underneath as well. So if you're doing anything dodgy, again, not saying that you would, but you can literally deploy this table away, get down into the shaft, and get out.
So for the ship team that has to build this, mm-hmm. do you think they're going to be appreciative of all this that you've done, or do you think they're going to curse your name and be like, "What the heck"?
I mean, from feedback that I've gotten off ship team, they would rather have more than less. So I like to give as much as possible because it's fun, right?
Yeah.
I like my ideas to just flow, and I grew up with lots of sci-fi stuff that I want to put in, and it's fun.
It's an interesting dichotomy here, because with ships having more concepts and more images and more things fleshed out in this phase is so essential and so helpful. But with things like the planets and the moons, in next week's ISC, you'll see part 2 of our moons feature that's covering the development of Microtech's 3 moons this quarter. The guys who build actually have to build the moons. They built an entire moon with 3 images. Like the Concept gave them 3 images and said go from there. So they work with far less and make something much bigger. It's interesting. It's just an interesting dichotomy, the way the process changes between ships and planets or moons, for instance.
Yeah, because I really like as well on a ship. There's so much in one small space, even when it comes to like door locks and how something moves mechanically. It's such a interesting and complicated sequence of events in one small area, that the more I think I can give someone, the better it comes to life. It like just it looks like it should function that way. It looks like it should have always been that way, and you feel comfortable in essentially like quite a small space, really, because these ships are your avatars. You want to feel comfortable in it. and I love figuring out how to actually, traverse this space in the most comfortable in the most comfortable way possible, and in the most fun way as well. So I want a little bit of both.
Like the back seat of a Volkswagen.
Yeah, or the backseat of a Mini. It's one of them. So the next stage that we did was actually skin investigation, and at the very bottom of this you'll see something that wasn't released before, which was the alternative skin if the advocacy hadn't won. So this is, again, which I was saying about insects, this is actually an investigative...
Oh my gosh, you guys are both wrong. It's not clerks or chasing Amy, it's mall rats. Get it right. All right, continue, Sarah.
Yeah, so we've just, for us, this is like the most fun bit for us, is like our investigating of just skins. And this was actually the Alex skin that we went with for the promotional side quest, I guess, that went along with trying to track down the Mercury. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was just our base version. And then we did a series of different types of skins, and then I think this one was already shown before. However, this was what was called at the time the Magpie, and this would have been the skin people would have got if this advocacy hadn't have won, basically. But this was just us going through different skins for advocacy, and of course the Magpie.
Let's go ahead and get both of those. Get both of them in one shot there. To the right, the two different ones. So yeah, for those who might not remember, you weren't here, or it's just been a while. There was a competition when the concept was first revealed. Players could essentially vote through participation about which additional skin was provided. The one that won is the one on the bottom. Am I correct? The darker one there?
That's
the darker one is the one that won. The one above is the one that could have been, but
did not. Yes. So from there, again, this is what we call our final layout of everything. So our final review. So yeah, it was just making sure that everything fit to dimension. Landing gears were correct, and with landing gears as well, we have to hide them because it's just overall breath-on processor. So that's what we do. Again, as you can see, all the ship items. What we wanted to get feel-wise for the rooms.
Let me ask you a process question real quick. Scroll back up to the one just above. The this isn't wireframe. What is this? What you're doing here, where the ship is kind of translucent?
Okay, so this is what in 3ds Max we call an X-ray vision, and this allows us to see the entirety of the ship, but we highlight certain sections of the ship that are of interest. So this is how we work out essentially where certain things are. And as you can see, ship items are actually in one contained area, which is easier for players to access instead of them running around different sections of the ship from one end to the other. We saw through this X-ray that this is actually just better to contain them all in one section. And as I say, we can also showcase that everything does fit as well.
Sure. I don't think the last time I used 3D Max was like 1999.
Oh my God.
I don't think they had that back then.
Wow, that's I think the earliest I came on was 2014, I think, and it was called 2014. So
yeah, back in the late 90s, I was part of a cabal that was modeling Star Wars ships, X-wings and TIE fighters, and then sharing them online so we could make our little internet videos way back in the when. Do little animations, stuff like that. Used to do a landscape in Bryce 3D, and then make a ship in 3D Max, and
Yeah, I've always used 3ds Max. I was taught in it, and I've learned so much since I first started using it, because I think the first thing I ever made in it was a cardboard box because I didn't know how to use it properly. I was just like, what do I do? What are all these buttons? Oh, help me, help
Yes,
me.
I am old. Thank you, chat. I am very, very old. I wasn't always the front man, the pitch man. I did have my start in development way back when. All right, continue. Another life.
So it was just we've got an initial floor plan, and then we literally just show every room individually, how things are accessed, and just initial floor plans, just like the originals, but to just make sure that everything is correct. And obviously visuals are, how we want them to look. So from there, that was just tweaking, but these are actually how we plan for our promo images. So this is actually just a very quick setup in KeyShot that I use. So I'll just drag in a few crates and get a tonal sort of feel for the image that I actually want to create. And then obviously this is a backwards and forwards of feedback between myself and Paul. But I wanted to eventually go with this muted white, just to reflect the Mercury itself, which is this pure white ship. It just gives this feel of almost serenity on the planet. And we were just
don't say serenity. You'll set the firefight people off.
But it's cool. I don't know if anyone ever noticed this little guy over here. He's checking out that lovely cargo. But I like to stick in little characters like that up to no good. Because this ship can be quite naughty if you wanted it to be.
No, there are quite a few things that have been snuck into our concept images that have been released over the years. Well, Paul and I talk about them quite often. We have an over-under on how long it'll take somebody to find it, and we're often disappointed when nobody does.
Yeah, that's it. That's something always to remember. We'll always try and sneak something in when we can, because it's fun, isn't it? It's like a Where's Wally, but spaceships. So again, this is just our initial.
No, you didn't use Bryce 3D to create the canyons, because.
No, this is actually one of our. We have like a repository that we get off. I think it's photobash.org, and we buy loads of imagery for our promotional stuff.
Yes.
And this is just what you can do is in KeyShot you can set a backplate with the lighten direction, which is what we did here, and then we just add the effects in later. There's a few ways to get around an initial shot that you want, and you can get. This is just the process that I use. Again, this is initially what we wanted to pitch was like this maybe derelict, this ring or jump point maybe, and this was flying around, but we went through a few initial stages and ended up on this one. And then again, this is just our planning phase of like promotional stuff. Actually, you can see this in KeyShot. This is how rough it is, just to make sure that we get the right angle. And then we go from the shot that we want over to here, and then just start to refine it again. So just make
Harkiver, who says, why not show it off an engine? Because this is concept. This is before it's been built an engine.
Yeah, this is just 3ds Max, and then we put it into KeyShot. But it's why our meshes have to be really, really clean and 100% like really tight. Because KeyShot, if your meshes are dirty or not very nice, all the smoothing groups can end up really, really horrible, and you'll get artifacts and horrible geometry that you just don't want. And also it makes ship teams' life a little bit easier when your geometry is really clean, because it translates better over to when it goes into 3D. just there's things like that that we have to like bear in mind. Again, this is what I was talking to before about just getting that right shot, and this is again key shot that I use to just light the scene and make sure that the mood is what I want, and then once I've got the angle I want, I just set it up. But also again, it gives ship team a good idea of the mood that we want inside of the ship. In certain areas. So this one would be quite cold and cool because you've got your avionics and also your data pods. So you want this section to reflect that with it, to keep these avionics cooler. And then as you can see in here, it starts to go yellow and a bit more warmer, because this is, as you're going further back, here is your bedroom and there's the chest room, and then this is the cockpit area. So this is, for me, lighting is incredibly important. Inside certain living areas and also in certain sections, what you want to convey across. And
yeah, I can't see where I'm going without it.
Yeah, and this is the final image. And then I think this is just our schematic renders that we do for marketing and make sure that again everything's correct. And then this is what we call just the finished schematics in Occlusion Map. Just pop it on just to bring out shadows and stuff. And this was actually, we did this one just because it looked like I was on lunch and I was like, that looks really nice. I really want to do that. So that's actually how this one came to be, because this was just an extra one that I did. But I really, really liked it. And this was the whip. And then we were going to do more, but obviously time constraints were a little bit against us. But this was the one shot that I wanted to do, like it's on a dock and it's unloading all of its cargo. But like I say, we didn't really have time to finish that one, but and then this was the promotional stuff that we did. And it went through quite a lot of little changes because I wanted it to be like you've zoomed in through a camera and you're like spying on it. But this was the one that they initially went with, which was Alex's ship. And these were what I was talking about before. The two possible outcomes for the ship. And that's pretty much it for the Mercury in terms of everything from start to finish.
Cool. Well, let's zoom all the way out and see the full breadth of everything that's done for the concept of just one ship. You can't even fit everything in one screen, can you?
No, it's that.
It doesn't let you zoom out far enough.
No, it's that big. All I can do is just scroll across just to see, just to show you exactly.
And while obviously we thank Sarah for being here and taking the time to do this. This is the process that happens with every ship that goes into Star Citizen. All of our concept artists work in much the same manner, exploring. These are all the same considerations and explorations that have to be done for all of our ships. This is what we've learned over the last several years developing Star Citizen. We need this level of exploration in our concept phase so that we can avoid the calamities that can happen later on. When you don't have these answers early on, and you're forced to make changes because things just don't fit or things don't work the way that you thought they would. It's
why we have to do these like fully fleshed out interiors to make sure that everything does fit and that you are getting the one-to-one from concept to 3D, which is what I want more than anything, is to make sure that it is 100% correct. And I like to be quite thorough with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll often see many of these images and many of this process detailed in our monthly subscriber magazine, Jump Point, as well as many of these images show up in the subscriber vault, which is another resource of concept work and concept art paths never taken and stuff. So if you're a subscriber, those are two of the perks that you get as a subscriber, an exploration of these things in either the vault or the Jump Point each and every month. Now, Sarah, we've only got 5 minutes left.
Shall we?
We filled the show. We filled the show with the Crusader Mercury. I know we had something else we were going to go into. You want to show that? Just go ahead. It's like.
Shall we do a bit of Pisces?
Well, we got a bit of Pisces, or scroll left. Scroll left real quick.
Oh,
or we got a bit of Carrick.
Bit of Carrick.
We've only got 5 minutes, folks.
Okay.
What do we want? We want Carrick. We want Pisces. I know. It's like, why am I even asking? Seriously, why am I even asking? All right. So now the Carrick was originally concepted back in 2014. But
it was.
Part of what we're talking about is it was concepted back before this level of process that we just showed was developed and implemented. So you had to go back and flesh out the original concept.
I did. Yeah. This was what initially I was given was this initial block out, and again we tried different ways of getting around this back end area because we wanted to integrate this section a little bit better into what it was here. So this is what we did to just quickly run through it. So the flow of it, just we wanted it to flow a little bit better in this back section, which is why it ended up like the way it did here. And then here, as you can see, I got a little bit of feedback again off Paul and made sure that, this had to, because it kind of bent, it sort of bends here. We want to make sure that this flows round again. So that's what I did here, is what you can see. Just making sure that all the lines are flowing, trying to get in some of this original detailing that I had on the very initial Carrick, and also this front section as well. Sort of just breaking up little sections and adding detail, which the original had, but we wanted to just make sure that it was a bit more integrated into the front. Okay, so again, I tackled different sections of rooms. So this was the medical bay room, and this was the scanner for the person, whoever's injured, which I thought you'd feel a bit exposed if you just sat here with everyone looking at you. So what I did was I created this section for the machine, and again I got a little bit more feedback off Paul and created this. I wanted obviously to feel quite sterile because it's a sterile environment, and also look quite modern as well, I guess, because it's it's the future.
Oh yeah, no. This room, the medical room, strange enough, is one of my favorite rooms in the ship. We've been capturing footage for it ahead of. Folks will see some stuff again in next week's ISC, but I actually saw the medical room for the first time just a couple days ago, and I was very impressed with the little enclosed medical area.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's this light as well. Once it's engaged, it'll turn from green to red, just to know that someone's inside there. And obviously, you've got your MRI technicians in this room, and then this little storage section leads on to here. So originally, it was just this quite bland room that we just did an initial blockout for, but we know that we could push it a bit further. So obviously, you've got your sections for this could potentially be like if you've brought back maybe a specimen or something from your travels, you could pop them in here, and I don't know, I don't want to say experiment, but so yeah, we just blocked out this section. Okay, so another area that I got tasked with was the cartography, the Airlock room, which kind of leads out into the front section of the Carrick, by the Pisces Bay, and this area as well. It was originally like a square table, but it was quite tight to get around here, so it has this rounded more like section at top now. It's just so you can get around it a bit easier than what you could do originally.
Again, because the concept was developed at a time before we had our metrics We'd love to, for it's the reason we showed this entire process today is because this is where we've come to over the course of several years of game development. It's when the metrics are incredibly important. These things you have to be able to work. You have to be able to move from A to B to C to D throughout a ship. And when changes are made to something like the Carrack, which is obviously as beloved and has as much as the weight of expectations on it, the changes are not made lightly. They're made for the benefit of gameplay. They're made for the benefit of metrics. They're made for the benefit of resource cost, and there's a variety of reasons, but they're not done just casually or flippantly.
No, and that's it, because you do want to maintain, its original identity in the best way that you possibly can without, destroying it. And it's something that you always have to, like what you've just said, bear in mind when you do make these changes. Which is why I'll always try and put in the line work that was there originally, or try and get some of its identity back, but make sure that you can get around a certain object, but without ruin the experience completely. So from these rooms that I got tasked, as you can see, we did a little quick paint over of the corridor leading to the top section of the Carrack. This is the Antigrav Room. Again, we had to fill the space quite efficiently. And then this room here is this airlock area. I think you actually showed that room actually yesterday in 3D, and translates quite well. And so this is the cartography section that we were experimenting with. Because originally we were saying about what if we had all these screens on here, just to map out exactly where you're going through space, and you've got your cartography here, and he's messing around with all the next destination that you want to go to and explore, and this is literally all the stages that we have to go through in order to make just to plan it out as efficiently as possible. And
I got to play CIG advocate here again. While this is a concept, concepts are exploration. The cartography room, as you see it in the Carrack, doesn't quite look like this. This was a concept exploration.
Yeah, this is just to give a good broad idea, and as I said, it's always good to give ship team a bit more, just so that they can even nip it back or go with it. But as I say, the cartography room does look different to this.
It doesn't have the screens along the back wall.
No, because I played a lot of Mass Effect, and that map area was always so badass. You just want a cool vibe in that room. So it was actually after this concept, what you saw the cartography room currently, it does have that vibe, which is what we were after. It's really cool. Okay, so yeah, under section was another task that I was given. So you probably have seen this actually in 3D. That's been out. And some of the inspiration that I got was actually the Galactica from Battlestar. It has that exposed rib that has the entire length of the ship. I really love that. So I was like, what if it has this reinforced section underneath and is actually integrated a little bit more into the underside of the ship? So my inspiration for that was basically for this section, and this is the landing area as well. Originally it was exposed, but we hid it behind this door, which again is just overall better for process and power, and also the ramp as well, which is in two sections, so it kind of just folds out. So that's kind of the level of detail that I would have liked to have gone into on that one. And then this back section, which again was having a breakout and having an exploration for this, because that's the original that we had, and then we had to flesh this section out and make sure that it sort of blended with the rest of the ship, with these cylindrical engines. Okie dokie. So yeah, here we go. So again, this is more refining and feedback, maneuvering thruster placement, making sure that they're in the correct places, sort of, taking inspiration from the original and then implementing it into the new mesh. Again, sorry, I'm speeding through here, but okay, so yeah, the Carrack has this red accent like the Pisces does, and we try to incorporate that all the way into the into the ship. Some, as you can see here, some shapes were not the correct shape for anvil, so we made them more in the shape language that it should have for anvil. Sorry. Again, yeah, we had a room off to the right, which was unused. So I changed it. So I added it into the original room, which, as I say, was an unused room, and it's like a tool room, so you can fix stuff up. And it just gives you a little bit of extra space to fix things. And if you bring anything back that you're not quite sure of, you can come to this section, and it's it's your work area. So yeah, this is the exterior. As you can see, this is the old and new. So old is on the left and the new is on the right. And this is just all the stuff that we went backwards and forwards with. As you can see, it's we're trying to get, as I say, original stuff in that we thought was really cool. And as you can see, this is the more integrated version. And this is the skin that has been floating about, that we were trying to push for breakup on the exterior of the Carrack.
Cool.
Yeah, so this was the original engine from the Citizencon, and this was the one that I was integrating at the time. So as you can see here, this is it. So this was the one at Citizencon, and then we were talking about the engine size, the engine shape, feedback that we got, and I wanted to keep this old shape from the original Carrack, but just integrate these engines into it. Like the new shape language for anvil is these circular engines. So that's the reason behind that. Was, I say, I like to keep some old and new, and just try and blend the two together.
And of course, the game has developed an additional 5 years since the concept was done, so we have to take in all the new technologies and all the new metrics and all the new styles, as anvil has progressed since then. Yeah,
exactly. As I say, with this as well, I did want to keep the original shape, but just try and update it to what the shape language is currently, but not totally, destroy what was cool about it in the first place.
Right.
So, sorry.
No, I have to let you go now, though.
Okay.
I have to let you. We are over.
Okay,
my
sorry.
allotted
I could talk forever.
I know, but you have bosses who get angry at me and stuff, so I've got to let you. So we can go ahead and start the screen share now, and we can go back to our cameras, JJ. I should probably sit up. I like these podcast shows because this is how I sit for most of the time. I'm just like, yeah, it's like forever alone. But yeah, Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time to be here on the show with us today. What can I say? I think everybody appreciated it. Of course, the Crusader Mercury Star Runner is available right now as part of our Valentine's Day promotion. So you can check that out if you liked what you saw, you're interested. It's currently available to pledge for right now. Also, for everybody who's been watching us now, you may not have seen the save the date for Citizencon. this year went live on our website. We're pleased to announce that Citizencon is on October 10th. It returns back to Star Citizen's birthday this year from LA, and it is at the Los Angeles Convention Center. And take of that what you will. We won't tell you anything more about that, but I think it's posed to be the biggest CitizenCon ever at the Los Angeles Convention Center. So, yep, October 10th, 2020, LA Convention Center. You can ticket. That's just to save the date. As far as when tickets will be available, that'll be at a later time. Don't have that information for you, but yeah. So hopefully we'll see you there. It's right down the street. Yeah. So. For Sarah, I'm Jared. That's JJ in the back. Thank you for tuning in for Star Citizen Live. We'll see you. Watch yesterday's ISC if you haven't. If you want to see even more Carrick images and you're a subscriber, keep an eye out for the subscriber vault later today. All those images you saw flash by really quick in yesterday's ISC will be put up there in high resolution, and maybe a few that you didn't see along the way. So take care. We'll see you next week, everybody.